that there's a situation worse than apartheid, and that's what we call warehousing. Warehousing is a concept that comes out of the American prison system, where you have 6% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners. And they're warehoused. They're gone. They've disappeared.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on 25 cable stations from Vermont to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org, our YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. Speaking of YouTube, we've achieved a certain milestone. Our YouTube channels have been viewed over 1 million times. If you take into account video reposting, we've got over 2 million views. And none of it is funny cat videos, all human rights news and interviews. Today's program begins with protests to an event that never happened, a canceled appearance by President Obama in Bridgeport, Connecticut in mid-October. The main protest was by Latinos angry that Obama has become deporter-in-chief. Then to a presentation by Israeli activist, Jeff Halper, that we've been featuring in recent weeks. And this, the final section, he talks about where Israel is going, to apartheid or to something even worse. Then to an interview I did at a Tree of Life conference with Daud Nasser. He was victim to Israeli government vandals who destroyed 1,500 of his fruit trees. Finally, music performed by Tamer al-Sahuri and Albert Basile. Climate activists and anti-war folks lined up in Bridgeport even though Obama was a no-show. Even though U.S. policy in Iraq has been a disaster, Obama has the gall to think the U.S. can solve the problem of ISIS. In terms of climate, Obama talks a good game, but he won't even veto the Keystone XL pipeline. Later in the same city, a number of people stood next to a jail where immigrant Esfin Lima is being held to protest policy on immigrants by President Obama and Governor Daniel Malloy.
Que ni una más, deportación, ni una más, deportación. Lo otro es de que las deportaciones están rompiendo las familias. Las deportaciones están destruyendo a las familias de este país que han inmigrado para buscar una mejor vida. And deportations have destroyed.
My name is Luis Jumbla. I came here from Ecuador. I'm here for almost 22 years. I have a son. He's graduated from the UConn, Connecticut.
Could you explain what this rally is about?
Yes, this rally is about what we tired of the promise of the Obama administration. We tired because the politics is playing with our future, with our dreams. We in this rally because we need to the people hear our voices. The voices demanding justice, demanding the liberty for the people who is detained for no real reasons and facing deportation.
The sign says he's deporter-in-chief. Could you explain that?
And all this year, Obama is one of the most president of the United States deport most people deported to in this country. That's why we call him the chief in the deportation, because no other president in the United States deport as many people, millions of the people, near to 2 million of the people was deported in the Obama administration.
We want to call attention to his case. We believe that the governor of Connecticut should take action to allow him to be free. We think that there's a lot that his case stands for. The powerlessness of undocumented people in our communities. He he was living in Norwalk and was arrested because of something that he was accused of, something that there is no evidence to bear out. And we are very grateful that you guys are here tonight to call attention to his case. We want justice for Esvin Lima. We want justice for all immigrants. Justicia para Esvin Lima. Justicia para todos.
Justicia para Esvin Lima. Justicia para todos. Justicia para Esvin Lima. Justicia para todos.
Next to Jeff Halper of the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions. In his talk, he had been describing how the Israeli government deliberately destroyed any hopes of having two states, Palestine and Israel, living side by side.
So that means then one of three things. It's almost mathematical. One is apartheid. In other words, just like South Africa. And that's, in a sense, where we're going here. This is a map that is very easy to get to. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out. You take areas A and B, you take out the settlement blocks and Jerusalem, you add the route of the wall, this is what you get. It's clear. As a matter of fact, Israel calls its wall a border. It is not a security barrier, the wall. It's a separation barrier. That's the official name. And Israel calls it its demographic border. So it's clear that the wall has nothing to do with security. It comes to define the Bantustan. And it is apartheid, or what the UN calls the crime of apartheid. Apartheid can be defined in two elements. One is when one population separates itself from the others. That's what apartheid means, apart. And the second element is when that population then creates a regime. It's not just discrimination, it's a regime of permanent institutionalized domination. So when one population separates itself and then dominates permanently other populations, that's apartheid. It doesn't matter if it's based on race, based on religion, based on the color of your eyes, who cares? That's what the regime is. And in fact, apartheid here is very much like South Africa in the same proportions. South Africa created 11 Bantustans on about 10% or 11% of South African land. In other words, 89% of South Africa was left free to be a white democracy. Here the idea is to create a Palestinian Bantustan on 15% of Palestinian land. Not the 22%, and then leave 85% of the country to be a Jewish democracy. So it's the same proportion of the same concept. But ironically, because we all get upset with the word apartheid, ironically, apartheid is the liberal approach in Israel. It's the Labour Party approach. Apartheid is what Rabin and Paris, our Nobel Peace Prize winning president, and Ehud Barak, and the Labour Party cooked up. The Labour Party started the settlement blocks. Barak began that idea in 1999 at Camp David. The Labour Party initiated the wall. Sharon was against the wall. It was Labour that was pushing it. Labour was pushing settlements. It built settlements at a faster rate than the Likud did. It's Labour that did areas A, B, and C. Rabin in 1995. We can't blame this on Sharon and Begin and Netanyahu. So it's the Labour Party's approach and conception that's apartheid. I want to suggest, and I'll end on this, that there's a situation worse than apartheid. And that's what we call warehousing. Warehousing is a concept that comes out of the American prison system, where you have 6% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners. And they're warehoused. They're gone. They've disappeared. Where are they? They're inmates. They're wards of the state. They're in a completely dependent situation. And we don't negotiate with them. When there's a riot in prison, and we use non-political terms like riot, The guards have every right to suppress the uprising or actually the riot. It's the same. I would submit that that's the way Israel looks at the Palestinians. It sees them as inmates with no national rights. Israel has never, ever, until this minute, recognized the Palestinian people, recognized that they have national rights, or accepted a two-state solution. It's never done that. The best it did in Oslo was to recognize the PLO as a negotiating partner. So Netanyahu goes with warehousing. He says, hey, 15% is too much to give to Arabs. Why should we give them anything? It's our country. We're going to lock them up in areas A and B, and that's it. No negotiations. And if they haven't gotten the message yet, the message to the Palestinians, and this is the message of the military operation that's been carried out over the last couple of weeks after the disappearance of these 3 young people in the West Bank. That is zero tolerance. You are not a side. We're not negotiating with you. You have no rights. You're not going to get a state. This is our land, period. That's the message. And you're going to be imprisoned. It's a prison with the back door open. In other words, if you want to leave, tfadlu, go leave. You can go out through the back door to Jordan and get out. You can go through Egypt and get out. Otherwise, that's it. No more negotiations, no more games, it's over. So I would hope that for us, neither apartheid nor warehousing are acceptable, which means that we're going to have to start conceiving of a one-state solution. One democratic state, a binational state, I would say, and here there's some pushback from Palestinians, a little bit from Israelis, but more from Palestinians, but nevertheless a binational state, and we have to begin to construct a peace that would work and that would be just, and it's the only solution that Israel has left us. The bottom line is, yes, Israel can no longer be a Jewish state. It can't. As a matter of fact, it can no longer be Israel. It's going to be a wider state, including both peoples. I even have a little joke. What would that country be called? Well, you could call it Palestine. If you spelled Stein, S-T-E-I-N. Right? That's inclusive. At any rate, what I'm trying to say is that that's the only alternative Israel has left us. We can't blame the Arabs for this. If the two-state solution is gone, and the Israeli left and myself worked on the two-state solution for years. You can go back to my writings about how to save the two-state solution. If it's gone, it's because Israel eliminated it. And we have to hold it accountable, and then we have to go on and try to get a just peace based on a one-state formula. So, sorry I talked so long, but thank you.
The remarkable Congregational Church of Old Lyme has been sponsoring the Tree of Life conferences for over a decade. They started just in their church. Now they hold the conferences in a dozen cities in the Northeast. We went to Cape Cod to do a number of interviews at one of their conferences. And we speak with a man who's been putting up an amazing fight and suffered a big loss. I'm speaking to Daud Nasser, and we're going to be talking about a very special farming community he has near Bethlehem. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
The Tent of Nations is quite different than a normal farm. Could you describe it?
Well, the Tent of Nations is a farm southwest of Bethlehem, belongs to my family. We own the land since 1916, since the Ottoman period. And we name it in 2002, the Tent of Nations, but it used to be called Dahar's Vineyard, which is the, according to my grandfather's name.
And the Israelis have been setting up settlements, of course, everywhere, and I understand it's surrounded on three sides by settlements. Which settlements?
Well, it is surrounded by 5 Israeli settlements, and our farm, which is located on a hill, is the only hill that is without an Israeli settlement. And since 1991, the Israeli authorities are trying to confiscate the land there, our farm, and build another settlement. So they use different ways legally. We had many attacks from Israeli settlers. They are trying to isolate us, but we said, we need to do it the other way. So the normal response, people are expected to act in a violent way or resign or leave. But we said we will do it the other way, and we started a non-violent, a creative, a positive way of resistance under the slogan, "We refuse to be enemies." And we started what we call it now, the 10 of Nations.
I understand you had registration forms from the Ottoman era, and that sort of slowed down the grabbing of your land.
Well, we are happy that my grandfather, he registered the land when he bought it. So we got documents from the Ottomans, and then we kept re-registering it during the British Mandate period, during the Jordanians and Israeli. So we have the documents, and also my grandfather used to live on the farm in a cave. So this is how my father and uncle, they grew up with the land. But still, when the Israeli authorities declared the farm as a state land in 1991, we went to the court to prove ownership, and we are still in court since 1991. Although we have our presence and our documents, but still it's a very difficult process or struggle for justice.
I've heard you speak at other Tree of Life conferences, so if I recall, to get permission to build structures on your own land, you have to get permission, and they don't give it to you.
Yes. So the area, it is like outside Bethlehem, and it is under the Israeli control, which is, of course, like a Palestinian occupied territory.
Is it the so-called Area C?
Exactly. And on Area C, Palestinians could not get a building permit, so we have so far, since a couple of years, 13 demolition orders for tents, for shades, for anything we build, we get a demolition order. Although we try to apply, and we applied many times, and all the time is, the application was denied without giving reasons.
And what about building a cave or enlarging a cave, if I remember that?
Yeah, caves are natural caves. So what we've done is, with all the restrictions we have, like no water, no electricity, and no building permit, we started to think about a creative way of resistance. So for electricity, we have a solar power system now. For water, we are depending on rainwater. And as you said, we are extending and renovating existing caves, which is a way, to prove that we are able to do something and to create something positive, even in a very difficult situation.
And you invite and bring people to summer camps and to visit and to teach them peaceful ways of resistance.
Important is to empower people, because living in a situation like this, it's very easy to hate, but it's very difficult to invest our frustration constructively. So this is our message, to keep hope alive and to show people, as I said before, in a very difficult situation, we can make a difference, even in a small steps. And that's why we invite people, we invite internationals, locals, and Israeli people to come and see, because the best way of education, come and see, and start to relate to the situation, connecting the faces, to connect the situation with the faces of people. So it's easy to call somebody an enemy when we don't talk to each other. But the moment we start talking, we realize that we get more questions, and it confuses us. And this is an important way of education.
Now, you say things have been in court for decades. But then what happened in May of this year?
And on the 19th of May, early in the morning, the Israeli bulldozers came to our farm to the eastern part in a valley where we planted around 8 to 10 years ago apricot, apple, and grape trees. Around, we did not count, but around, we talk about more than 1,500 trees. And those trees were destroyed just a week or two before the harvest. And for us, it was a shock. This is the first time that the military is doing that. We had problems from settlers, but this is the first time from military. And the problem is that those trees, like planted years ago, we were like, watching those trees to grow and grow like our own children. And in a matter of like 2 or 3 hours, everything is gone. So it was hard for us. It was hard to say we can forget or we can forgive. But of course, with our slogan, we refuse to be enemies. We are trying through this situation to invest our frustration in a constructive way.
Now, you were in court over this. How do they justify what they did?
Well, they said those trees were planted years ago on estate land. Of course, it is a private property. And what was, we found a piece of paper last March on that area says that those trees were planted on estate land. So we appealed to the military authorities. And our appeal was accepted on the 12th of May. And the moment it's accepted, the military is not allowed to take actions unless there is a court decision about that. But instead of waiting for a court decision, they came and destroyed the trees. So they acted illegal according to the law. And that's why now we are going on 2 legal battles. One in front of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court also in 2007 decided that we have the right to re-register our own land according to the law that is in the West Bank. And we started this process. So this action was done without respect to the Supreme Court ruling. This is the case number 1. And the second case, which is in front of the military court, because our appeal was accepted by the military, but instead of waiting for a court decision, they came and destroyed. So that's why we have the right to be compensated. So we have 2 legal battles are going on. And since they were given...
Is there any hope of winning these things, or does Israel just make you spin your wheels and waste money on lawyers?
Well, it's hard. It's very hard. The system is unjust for us. Very hard. But at the end, we always say we are people who believe in justice.
I was reading the blog of Rabbi Brandt Rosen, and he was appealing to readers. He was telling people about what happened, and he said, go to congressmen, go to the president. This is outrageous. The U.S. gives Israel so much money. They should protest. Did any congressman or the president get involved?
Well, we are in touch with congressmen, and many people reacted after this event. And this made a difference. This made proved that we are not alone in the struggle. There are there are many people, in the U.S. or other countries, who are trying to make a difference. So I want to thank everyone who acted at that time, because this changed the situation. To feel that we are not alone in the struggle for justice. So it made us more hopeful for a better future. Yes.
And to conclude, if people want to know more, what is your website?
The website is Tent of Nations, www.tentofnations.org, and we have also the Friends of Tent of Nations North America, Fortuna.org, for more information.
Great. Last thing was this picture. That you have a card. And there's a picture on the back. Maybe you could just describe what those are about.
Well, this is about the destruction of the trees in our valley here, those trees.
Show that one to the camera, and that's pretty obvious, a destroyed tree. And then the other?
And the other one is they left just one tree, which is the fig tree. And now we are calling this tree the the tree of hope. So we hope that, like one day justice will prevail, and one day we will see the sun of justice rising again.
All right, we're going to end with that tree of hope. Thank you very much. And now we close with music by Tamer Al-Sahuri and Albert Basile. Hear the whole piece on our YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.